Welcome to my gathering basket. My name is Danelle. Thank you so much. In a busy season, this is the very end of December 2018. For just a little bit longer, if everything works as planned, this should be released on New Year's Eve. At least that's my hope. So I'm recording it a little bit early so that I can get this published, hopefully at our public library before they close for the New Year's holiday. So I appreciate you taking some time out of what I know is for almost everybody a very busy week or two. I hope you've had a wonderful holiday and that you have a wonderful beginning to the new year. I am perched tonight. It's kind of late at night. Funny story. I was going to go back to my normal podcast corner and I had everything set up, my notes all written, the camera set up, everything ready to go earlier today where I normally podcast, which is that direction in front of a big picture window. Recently, I have this robin that has kind of got a crush on me. Anytime I'm home, it comes and sits on the window ledge. And it will be there all day. I have my spinning wheels set up right next to that window, and it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I walk away and he leaves, and if I come close to the window, he comes back, and he's very loud. He talks to me a lot, and his little nails like to scratch around. He'll dart off and then come back and perch, and he tries to stay on this little tiny ledge. It's just a little tiny ledge there, and so he's always scrambling and pecking at the window, and I've tried everything. He doesn't cause any problems. It doesn't seem to bother him. At one point, my picture window looks out towards my parents' picture window, so they get a kick of watching this robin as well, and so mom will call and say, "Your robin's back." And he was so loud today, there was no way I was going to be able to podcast. Anyway, totally not fiber related, but it's been interesting, even impacting my podcast. But anyway, I am in front of one of my grandmother's quilts. This was left to me. It was a quilt that I always liked. This quilt she considered to be worn out and old. It's all hand pieced. Grandma did everything hand pieced and hand quilted. I still have her hand quilting frame and a lot of her quilting things. It is very faded because she believed in using it, and we washed them every year, and so it's definitely showing its age. In fact, quilts were definitely a utilitarian thing for her, as much as her seams all match, and my attempt in precision in quilting comes from watching Grandma rip out and make sure that every corner matched when she put a quilt together. But this one had been worn out, and she would use it under mattresses to protect the mattress because the mattress was valuable. And this particular quilt actually would hang over her front door during the winters to keep the drafts out. So she would hang her quilt up and nail, like penny nails, through the quilt into the door jamb in order to keep the drafts out. And I live in her house now, and I must say that I have multiple wool layers on today because it is cold in Missouri all of a sudden, and I do have a drafty old house. So what wool have I been working with when it's been cold the last few days? Well, as far as spinning goes, I am very happy to say that I have, and it doesn't look like much, but I have the first 2 ounces, the first bag, and again, lighting, I'm sorry. This is just a natural brown, real pale, and it's coming up really, at least on my monitor, very yellowish. It's not, it's a very milk chocolate brown, kind of a light brown color. And this is my alpaca silk and Angora rabbit blend that I have been working on for a long time. So I had 2 bags, and this stuff is so floofy that 2 ounces filled like basically a gallon size bag. So I have the first 2 ounces done, and what I did with the rest of my roving is I kind of figured out measured out how much I could comfortably spin in one spinning session. So 15 to 20 minutes or so. And then I figured out that length while I was working on this, and I took the rest of my other 2 ounces that I had in another bag and split that all up into that length. So every day I've been spinning at least once, sometimes 2. I had 24 of those lengths for the next 2 ounces. And what I'm hoping to do is get the other 2 ounces done in the next couple weeks and 2-ply this to make a lace weight. I did get, and I just got today, a spinner's control card that I'm pretty excited about, but I haven't used it enough. I want to use it a little bit more and see how it works, and then I will definitely show you, because if it works the way I think it's supposed to work, I'm pretty excited about it. But this did come up, can you even see that? It did come up to be about 45 wraps per inch. So by the time I get this, when I just did a simple ply back test, it really came up just under 30 wraps per inch, which will make an actual lace weight. So I'm pretty excited. I'm hoping the yardage is as good as I hope it is, so I can make a nice, I'd really like to do some sort of like a Orenborg type shawl with this, because it is just so fine. Anyway, it has been so much fun, and I am, after picking this up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down for 2 or 3 years, I'm really excited to have this all done. So I had hoped to have this done by the end of the year. That's not going to happen, but I'm hoping before the end of January I'll have this all spun and plied, I hope. And then I've been looking at patterns. I haven't settled on a shawl pattern that's a far and away winner for me. So still have a little bit of hunting, which, you know, time spent on Ravelry hunting through patterns is never a bad use of time, right? So hopefully I will, in the next new year, I will have that to work on. I'm really excited. I still have that blue light fingering to lace weight that I spun up, that I showed like at the very first podcast or 2 that I did. And I'm looking for, again, just the perfect shawl to do with that. So 2019 is going to hold some shawl knitting for me. The other thing, spinning wise, last time I showed you that I was getting ready to block one of my snowflakes that I had made out of my homegrown hand spun cotton. Well, I got this one blocked, and then the other day I sat down, I thought, before I put away my Christmas things, I just want to get these made and ready for next year. So I made 3 more, and each one is a little bit different. They're a fairly good size, which I kind of wanted something smaller, but when I got started with these, I liked them and the detail that I could get with the larger snowflake. This one's a little bit smaller. And then this one is fun. Get the right side. Isn't that fun? Oh my goodness, it was a headache to make. But I really liked the result. So I've got these all crocheted. I got everything that I spun except that's the amount I had left over. So I had roughly 55 yards that I had spun up 2-ply. Did this on my Ashford e-spinner, trying to remember. Very happy with the way it crocheted up. It did not untwist. On a whim, I had never done this before, or if it has, it was when I was much younger. I did not have any commercial stiffener available. I always used to use, I think it was Aleene's Stiffy or something like that, stiff stuff that you can get in a bottle, and and some people use Elmer's glue and just water it down and use that to stiffen their crochet pieces. I remembered my grandmother telling me that she always made cornstarch to starch all of her crochet pieces. Dresser scarves was a big one that she always ironed and starched. So I kind of did a little bit of research. I was trying to find the right side here. Did a little bit of research, and every blog, every recipe, every comment was slightly different. And so finally I just put some cornstarch in a pan, pretended I was making gravy, and made up some starch. What I ended up with, it worked great, because most of the actual recipes that I found were like for 2 or 3 cups of this stuff, I had 4 snowflakes. I didn't need that much. I didn't want to waste it. So I believe what I ended up using was like a 1/2 tablespoon of just plain old cornstarch in about a 1/2 cup of water. Mixed that up really good till it was all dissolved in the cold water, and then put it on the stove and brought it just to a boil. Turned off the stove and stirred it, and then let it cool off, stirring it every little, 5-10 minutes or so that it wouldn't have like a little skim on it. If you've ever made gravy, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. The directions all say to take that concoction and then dilute it by about 1/2 or so. You can actually use the same thing for a spray starch, just diluting it even more to whatever consistency you want it to be. I put a little bit, I didn't even measure, I just kind of took it to the sink, and I was using a whisk and whisked it up and just kind of dribbled some water out of the faucet into it until it looked like it was about the consistency I wanted, which was very thick actually, because I wanted these things hard. It wasn't like a dresser scarf or something that I wanted to be drapey still, just smooth. These guys I wanted hard, so that they would be able to hang on the tree. So there is my snowflake. I am so stinking proud of this project because it was something a year or 2 ago. Was the first time that I even knew that you could grow your own cotton, especially around here, and to go from that point of, wow, you can do that, to, hey, I wonder if, and then the work the last 2 years of trying to grow cotton, getting the right kind this year, getting a little bit of a harvest, and being able to go all the way into hand spinning it into a final crochet project. I was just so happy with that. So thank you for indulging that. I just think that's going to be so much fun to hang up next year. As knitting goes, I showed you I had one of my croy socks done and had started on the second one. I now have its brother. They are not matching. They were pretty close. I actually started the second skein. I out-thunk myself, my mom would say. The second one was not lining up. It did not, because of all the little stripes, it was really hard to figure out the sequence. So I pulled from the same, Croy, Peyton's Croy socks have 50-gram balls. So typically 2 skeins to make a pair of socks. And the first one I started at a color break so that I would be able to match it up with the second one, which is my typical plan and usually works. I am not a purist when it comes to matching socks, but I do enjoy it when they do. So I tried when I got to the second sock, and I pulled till where I had the color and it matched up, and I thought I was good. When I pulled from the center, which I usually do, I know there's debates on that, but I was pulling from the center and it looked like the pattern repeats were going opposite. So I thought, okay, the second skein was wound the other direction. So I started from the outside of the ball. Well, if I had just gone with the inside, I would have been fine. But it actually the patterning went backwards. So it overlapped in several places. Again, these are usually my work sock, go-in boots. These are built to be used. They are tough wearing socks. So I'm very happy with it. I did the double gusset heel, and this was just a 3x2 rib that I threw into just a vanilla sock. So I have one pair done. It has been so cold the last few days that I have been living in my Croy socks and the couple pairs of hand spun socks that I have that are like a sport DK that I spun. And so I have been telling myself I need to get more of these done just as quick as I can. So I will have another pair of croy socks on the needles before long. But I have kind of an interesting situation this year. And this just kind of occurred to me, I think, last night. So I'm still kind of thinking, I have the potential to have completely clean needles at the end of 2018. I think I'm happy about that. I think I'm okay with starting over fresh on January 1st. But I found, when I finished the croy socks, I remembered that I did have a project in a project bag that I had found, totally forgotten about. In fact, I checked on Ravelry today and I started this the middle of 2016. This is with some farm raised from my friend Kathleen, and I've talked about her Prairie's Edge fibers. And I'll link to her. She does the most interesting blends sometimes. This was her, we were having a conversation about alpaca. She raises alpacas. And I said, you know, my favorite pair of commercial socks were alpaca. It's like 90% alpaca. They were wonderfully warm. Alpaca is very, very warm. I said, but when I've done hand spun, I love spinning alpaca, but it just didn't seem hard wearing enough to me to be a sock. And so we were having this conversation and she said, oh, here's a skein of some that I had spun. I think you'll like it. I think you are not going to wear through this. I think she's right. So this is a Targhee alpaca blend, and I don't have the tag anymore, and I checked my notes and I didn't write down the percentages, but this is, when I bought it from her, it was a natural undyed cream color. This is the My Cup of Tea socks. And because I was at the time just getting started in natural dyeing, I thought, oh, My Cup of Tea. I picked the pattern, and I didn't really want white socks. That can end up in, when you're using these as work socks and you're out in the garden, white isn't the best color. So I thought, I'm gonna tea dye it. So I took that cream yarn and stuck it in a pot with some tea bags. I don't remember what kind of tea it was. It was a black tea of one sort or another. I think it was some that I had decided I didn't particularly like the flavor of or something, and I was willing to sacrifice it for a dye project. Long forgotten. Like I said, it's been several years ago. I think it was actually 2015. I know it was 2015 that I bought the yarn. I think it was 2015 when I dyed the yarn, and then I started the socks in 2016. I was working on them at farmer's market when I was selling produce in the summers, and it is I'm doing a really bad job of showing this, I'm sorry. Here's the stitch pattern. So it's just very simple, and again, this is a free pattern on Ravelry. It's the crocus stitch, I believe they call it. So it just has these decreases and increases. Make one, slip, slip, knit. Very basic increase, decrease pattern. But it is a 12-row repeat, and I am not good at memorizing patterns. That 1 or 2 row repeats, fine. And it's every other row is just a plain knit row. But somehow by the time I would get to the next one, and then I'd have to put it down, wait on a customer, pick it back up, try to remember where in the chart I was. And I think I got to about 2 repeats, somewhere around there, when I put it down. Because I thought, I'm gonna make mistakes. I need to concentrate. Well, it got shoved aside in favor of something else, and I just never got back to it. So I picked this up the other day and started in on it, and somehow the pattern just clicked. So I got down to, I think I got the rest of the leg and the heel flap and gusset started in one day, and then took off and did the other. So this is, again, the Eye of Partridge heel, which, can I just say, I am so proud of myself again. I'm sorry, it's a lot of bragging this show, I guess. But this is probably the first time that I have done an Eye of Partridge heel flap and not totally messed it up. generally speaking, it's so easy, just a slip stitch pattern, but it's alternates the slip stitch instead of just doing columns. And I really like the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it wears. But somehow, because it is so easy, about 4 rows in, I lose track of where I am, and inevitably, I don't think I've done a pair with a eye of partridge heel that I haven't had at least 2 rows that ended up lining up. So I'd have this little checkerboard pattern, and then about here, I would start with columns. And then I'd pick back, or I'd rip back and get something else goofed up. And it's just one of those things that's so easy, it's easy to get sidetracked and just go on autopilot. And next thing I know, I've got 2 rows that are wrong. So I was so happy, and it came down to I'm a little bit more experienced knitter now and a little bit better at reading my stitches, as well as knowing that I'm probably going to mess up, and you just have to keep a little bit more focused here, Danelle. So I have partridge on the flap, and I think you can see it a little bit better on this one than the croy socks, but there you can see the double gusset a little bit better. You can see the decreases there, and then there's the double gusset. So if I can get the light, okay, there we go. But I just find that really hugs my foot and the heel doesn't slip. So anyway, there is my cup of tea sock, all finished. Just a standard, the wedge toe works for me about the best. I need to try some more toe patterns. Maybe that'll be another experiment for this year. So I got that one done, and I didn't bring it over, but I have the second one all the way down ready to start the heel flap. So I have a heel and a foot to do on that. And then when I went to go get that project bag out and restart that project, I realized there was another project bag that had something in it. And I had decided at that point that I needed to go through any projects and decide either finish them or frog them. And I really thought that this one was not very far along, and I was planning to frog it. And then I realized, I don't have my ends woven in, that I had one sock. I had decided just to do a shorty sock. So I had one sock done, and the second sock, I have small feet, was getting really close to halfway. So there's no way I'm going to frog a sock and a quarter when it's a shorty sock. So basically, I have this much more to knit. This is it's a corn fiber, and I cannot remember it's no longer being made, but it is 100% corn. In spinning lingo, I believe that's ingeo. And this was a dyer in the US that was able to get spun ingeo, and she dyed it. I believe in the meantime, I talked to the people that I bought this from, and they said they had just a little bit left. I've got several skeins of it. It was just a very interesting, it has a very cottony feel. It is not particularly pleasant to work with. I did this on the sock machine. That's when I first got it. I bought it to use on the sock machine. It went through the sock machine beautifully. Hand knitting it's a little on the squeaky side, and it tends to, and I haven't figured this out, it tends to tighten on the needle. So if I lay it down, and I had started this the same year that I started that alpaca sock. So it had been sitting in a project bag. I think I had this one about half done. No, I had half of the heel. I was doing just a simple short row garter stitch heel, because again, I had planned on using this for like in my garden clogs. So that garter stitch heel seems to resist a little bit more. It just seems like goodness, it's late at night and my words are gone. But it just seemed like a harder wearing heel. So I had planned on doing a full sock, and then I thought, oh, these are for my garden shoes anyway. Let's just make them short. I'd be wearing them during the summer. So I actually had half of the heel done, which was fun. Then I had to remember how many stitches I had done and all that for the heel. Never leave a project for 2 years with half a heel. So I had to do this, and at that point it was like, this is not fun to knit. I'm just gonna call it a shorty sock. So one is done. It's just the Hermione's texture pattern, very simple. And I have another one done. So I have, I'm not gonna do this way, right? I have this much of a second sock and this much of a second sock. And then my needles are empty. My mom used to say, old wives' tale, at supper or dinner, if you cleaned everything up, there were no leftovers at the end of the meal, it meant that there was fair weather tomorrow. So anytime we would have a family dinner or something, she'd say, now if you want fair weather, we need to finish this up. No putting away leftovers. So I'm kind of wondering if I finish everything up for 2018 and there's no leftovers for 2019, maybe that means that I have a fair knitting year ahead. I'd be okay with that. So that's all I have on my needles right now. Everything else, I did go through my knitting basket and found a couple other projects. One mainly, I had a sock project that I loved the pattern. I loved the yarn. It was not a good combination. I actually tried that pattern and I will do it again. But the texture, it was supposed to be made for a highly textured yarn, and I've seen project samples made with it that were a highly variegated yarn and looked beautiful. But for some reason, the yarn I had, it just did not show the texture. And it was kind of a cable-y sort of pattern. Like I said, very well written. It was fun to knit. But I didn't want to put all that work on cables if you couldn't see the cables. So I did rip that one back. I have my Anne sweater that I talked about last time, and the more I looked at that, the less happy I was with it. So it is being ripped back, and I have plans for a new sweater. I think I'm still going to try to get the look of the Anne sweater, but I think I'm going to try to cobble together a couple patterns that will still give me the same look. So that'll come later. I'm still licking my wounds on that one, but I'd rather pull it out now. And yeah, I still had another skein and a half to knit, so I'd rather just pull that out. And if I'm not happy with it now, I'm probably going to be less happy with it at the end. So I'm going to change up a few things, and we will definitely see that again on this podcast. At least I sure hope so. But for right now, it is off the needles. It is, I just need to get it reskeined and wash that yarn and get it ready to knit again. Probably won't be my next project. The other thing that I finished is my cowl, and it is actually not blocked. I just finished the bind off like right before I clicked record so that I would have it to show you, because I was sitting at like 8 rows from being done, and I thought I am not showing something 8 rows. So anyway, I got it all finished, got it all bound off. I am super happy with it. It fits, it is snugly warm. It was meant to go under my winter coat, but right now in the house, it feels awesome. But this was knit out of a sock blank, and I will try to remember to link all the information on the maker. This was given to me by a very good friend who knows my obsession with chickens. So it is a rooster and hen, and then that great background of the chicken wire. So fantastic colors. The sock blank actually had 4 repeats of this, and I knew that originally I was going to make a pair of socks and a pair of socks. Like I said, I have smaller feet, so a pair of socks does not take an entire 100 grams. So my plan was, and then that's part of why I made the cowl. My plan is to, this is about a 12-inch square, so I just went ahead and found a row in between 2 repeats, the one at the end, and you can see I ran kind of like a lifeline up the edge with a contrast thread, and then I just separated that off so I would know that I had 1 repeat. And this is either going to go, the original plan was to put it in a frame and hang it in my kitchen. I am waffling between doing that or making a pillow out of it. Either one would be absolutely darling. It could definitely go in my living room as well. So it may go in a frame for now and be a pillow later. I can always do that. But I wanted to use every little bit of that yarn that I could. So, and I did not have a cowl that would go with my coat. And I had one and it developed some holes. I just used it well. And so it was time to make another one. Oh shucks. So I looked at this and I thought that would work for a sockhead cowl. So I'll take this off. It'll probably go right back on. It has not been blocked, and sock blanks, if you have not knit one, it's kind of, people either really enjoy them or really don't. I tend to really enjoy them. When you are working, well, when you're working with them, you pull them off the blank and they come off as ramen noodles, right? Because you're unknitting a piece of knitting. So it comes off in these strings, and it leaves kind of a texture to the knitting. Generally speaking, as soon as you block them, that does pretty well block out, and you're bound to just plain knitting. But that's how this knit up. And again, everything is coming off. Everything's coming up just a little bit on the yellow side, I'm sorry, but you can see how that color really distributed well through that whole thing. I'm super pleased with how that turned out. Really pretty, subtle, but definitely not a flat gray. So it's just, I think I did 3 3/4 inches of, again, sockhead cowl is a free pattern. It's a match to the sockhead hat that it seems like everybody has knit at least 7 of. I've done one, but it's just about 3 3/4 inches of knitting. I think the pattern said 4, and then you go into stockinette, and the pattern tells you very wisely to get this far in the pattern, get your ribbing as far as you want to, put it on a scale and make a note of that, and then do your stockinette until you have a matching amount of yarn left so that you can do the ribbing at the end to match. I actually didn't, this is my carry-along knitting, so I didn't have I was gone overnight. It was the only knitting I had in my purse, so I just kind of winged it. And when I got home, I measured, and I went until the next best thing I could come up with. I had my measurement of my yarn because I had cut this piece off. I measured the ball that I had made, or not the ball, I measured the rest of the sock blank. There we go. So I knew I had about 70, I think it was 73.5 grams. So I basically knit my ribbing as tall as I thought I would want it, and then started my stockinette and came as close as I could get to 50% of that sock blank. So whatever that was, 38 or something-ish. Again, don't take my word for numbers. But I got about halfway there and then just started back and kind of figured from there where my halfway point is. And for not having done this very exact, I'm really only off by that much when you fold it in half. So I'm very happy. And when it's all curled up on my neck and nice and warm, A, I don't care if they match, and B, nobody's going to be looking that close. And it's all scrunched up anyway. But it's a perfect size for me because it will fit around my neck nice and puffy. It will go up around my ears in the back if I want it to. And quite frankly, most of the time if you see me with a cowl, you're going to see me about like this anyway. So nice size for that. And keep me nice and warm. So that is another finished project. I wasn't even sure I'd have that one done by the end of the year, let alone be this close on the other projects. So I'm very happy with my knitting situation right now, and kind of excited. Part of me is really excited to start new things. Like I said, I usually have like a New Year's Eve cast on. So part of me is super excited about getting started with new things, and the other part of me is kind of in this paralysis state of, oh my goodness, I can cast on whatever I want to, like with a clean conscience. I have nothing else on the needles. I can do anything I want to. Oh my goodness, what do I start with? So I need to start picking my projects, which leads me to, oh, and I was gonna say, because I did the cowl and wanted to use up every bit of that yarn. It was so pretty, I didn't want to waste any. So when I got it all bound off tonight, that little bit is all I am wasting. So I am super proud of that as well. So anyway, planning for next year. I am not going to go through my plans because quite frankly, I haven't made them yet. But I was gifted a couple months ago, actually, earlier this fall. A friend of mine gave me a little, I think it's for a traveler's journal, but it's a little knitter's journal. Now, this looks yellow because it actually is yellow pages, but it has all the information for a project that you would want to record, and then just one of these dotted pages on the other side to do notes, to put swatches, to put samples, labels, all that kind of stuff on. And she was starting hers right away. She got one for her as well, and this is from Etsy. There's the maker. So it has enough for, realistically, probably all the projects I will make in 2019. So I think she gave this to me like in September, and I said, oh, everything I had was in progress. So I said, I'm gonna wait until 2019, and I am not a journal person. I am terrible at record keeping. Maybe 2019 will be the year. So I'm really excited about this. I may actually go online and order a couple more just so I have several years worth and can kind of get them matching. I have not looked at her site, kind of intentionally. But if you're interested in doing something like that, I'm really excited. It has all the right information. I have gotten very lax on keeping up my Ravelry pages. I'm sorry. I'm just not maintaining that. I usually keep a record of what projects I've made so I know when I started and stopped, which is how I know that I started this in 2016 and I started this in 2016. And maybe I'd rather not know that, but it's interesting. But I was trying to put together my notes for this and realized, I thought, oh, I'll do the count of how many projects I've made this year. I have no idea. So maybe next year I'll have a little bit more between the podcast and the little bit of Ravelry notes that I do, and maybe keeping a little bit of a knitter's journal too. So that's going to be something new for me this year. We'll see how it goes. So I think that's most of the handmade stuff. Homestead wise, it's time to start buying seeds. I'm excited. A little overwhelmed. This is the majority. We've been collecting the seed catalogs as they come. These are the ones that I mainly are going to be looking through. We've always had a massive garden, and we still do, but we're trying to make the rows a little bit wider, a little easier to get down, and we don't have as many people we're trying to feed off of it. Every year we say we're not doing farmers market again this year, and then about halfway through the year we realize we have way more than we can use, so it's a good way to, we give away a lot, and we still have extra. So it's a good way to at least pay off some of the seed. It's definitely not something we're planning on making part of our income, but at least we can pay for the seeds and plants that we will be getting for the next year. So typically we try to kind of put these aside, collect all of the seed catalogs, and then after the first of the year, it's time to start thumbing through the seed. These are ones that I have ordered from in the past. There are still a couple that are coming. We have not received our burpees catalog yet. There's usually 2 or 3 things at least that we like to get from there. And what we'd like to do, most seeds you can save from year to year. And I don't mean by like saving my own seed from a plant and using my seed. We don't do a whole lot of that. I'd like to try try. But for instance, there's like 3 things that we get out of burpees. So we'll get 4 or 5 packets of seeds, and then we only have to order from them about every other year. There are a few exceptions. Don't try to save parsnip seeds. Carrot seed can be a little bit chancy after a couple years. Several things like that. Just don't, the germination goes down. Interestingly enough, cotton seed. I have my cotton seeds that I saved from what I had this year, and I will definitely plant those again. But I did do some research on that, and basically after a year, they said the viability goes way down. So I just find that fascinating. But Territorial Seed Company is one. They sell a lot of supplies as well. They're a really good company. I've not ordered a lot, but I have ordered from them before. They have a lot of interesting varieties. Seed Savers Exchange is a fun company. I've been to a couple seminars that they've done. They are experts at seed saving. And basically, they have a retail catalog, which is this. It is full of all sorts of interesting, unusual, heirloom, just a lot of really fun stuff. So I get unusual things that I want to try from them. But Seed Savers Exchange also has a kind of a co-op. I don't know if that's, you can actually be a member of the Seed Savers Exchange and get a directory, and you can contact, they do a lot of like networking between gardeners. So people will put up, I have this plant and I've saved seeds, 3,000 seeds from this tomato plant, and you can barter, you can buy if you belong to that network. And it's something I've strongly considered doing, just because I do support the effort to save a lot of these old varieties that for one reason or another are kind of disappearing. And that's okay. Some of them need to disappear. Some of them just really weren't that fantastic. My grandmother saved seeds every year. Well, no, about every 2 or 3 years, because tomato seeds will last for a while. We keep them in the freezer and keep them dry, and you can save those for several years. The viability will still be good. She had a variety. We have no idea what it was. She called it Redhead, and it was the best tasting dark pink tomato. And about every 3 years or so, she had a patch out back away from everything else that she would plant several redhead tomato plants down there, and those would be the ones that she saved the seed off of. And the last year that she was actively gardening, I was certain she had grown some, and she grew some because I sold them at farmers market and people loved them. And I was absolutely certain, and Mom was sure that we had a little bottle of the redhead seed left, and we have no idea what happened to it. So that variety is gone, and it was a wonderful tasting, just a very productive tomato. It just about made me cry when we realized we went through everything multiple times and could not find that seed. So a local one to us, this is in mid-state Missouri, is Morgan County Seeds. They do not have much of an online presence. The others do. Morgan County Seed is actually a Amish company. They do have somebody that does maintain a bit of a website, but I have always found, and you can get the information on, their address and phone number and all of that. But honestly, the best thing to do with them is call them and get a catalog. They are more of a commercial. They sell to farmers marketers, market gardeners, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of they tend to sell things in larger packets, larger quantities. But they have the best popcorn choices. So we always get our popcorn from them at least. And I think I'm gonna get my loofah sponges seed from them as well. And then if you are interested at all in any kind of fruit, this, and especially for where I live, because this is just on the other side of the state, but Stark Brothers to me is, and I love being a beekeeper, this just, love that picture. But I have always had good success with the fruit that I've gotten from Stark Brothers. I've gotten peaches, okay, I take that back. I did have a cherry tree that didn't make it. That was kind of my fault. I didn't exactly have it winterized like I should have. But by and large, everything I've ever gotten from them has been great. We've got a lot of small fruit trees. And this year, my mom's Christmas request that my brother fulfilled was for a plum tree. So we will be planting a plum tree when the time gets right. And then I have told you many times about Baker Creek. That's another Missouri company. So wow, 3 of those are Missouri companies. This one is in Mansfield, Missouri. They are exclusively heirloom. Their website is rareseeds.com. They do a lot of international foods, a lot of Asian foods. They have pages of tomato plants, a lot of just really interesting things, some novelties. This is where I got my cotton from. So I don't order a lot from them, but it's really fun to, even though we're trying to limit the varieties, we still have to have fun with it. So there's always a few new things that we put in. So that's going to be over the next few weeks. I know Mom and I are going to spend a lot of time on the couch with pens and paper making lists. She probably already has them. And we've already made the list of all the seeds that we have left from last year and kind of our wish list of what we need to fill in. And we'll always order twice as much as we can actually plant. That's just part of it. And then we'll end up finding a place to put an extra row of this or that. And then I watch for it. By about next June, I will be whining about how much is in the garden. So those are our seed catalogs. It's going to be time before long. But for right now, I'm enjoying having some time inside doing my making. Quick worm update, because if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen the picture, and I'll try to post it here as well. I was watching some videos because YouTube. I did not realize how many worm composters have YouTube channels and how much information. It's been great for a definite newbie. One of them I referenced last episode as well, Emily, the crazy worm lady. And I said that I would mention her again this episode because she was doing a giveaway contest for a whole new worm system. So I said, well, yeah, I've already been mentioning you. Yeah, I'll do it again. But she had this video that showed, she was just kind of incidentally, she said, oh, there's a worm cocoon, which a worm cocoon is an egg case. So every egg case that you see, like I said, I'll try to put in a picture so you can see, they're just little, they kind of start clear and then they get a little bit deeper color. The ones that I saw were almost like gold, orangey gold. It's a really good sign that things are good, they're happy in your bin, that things are going right. They are developing and multiplying. You're going to have more worms. Things are, you know, and if things aren't right in your worm bin, that's not going to happen. So I didn't know what to look for. I had kind of tried to look and just didn't know what I was looking for, and then I happened on this video that she had done and recently, and I'll put a link to her channel below, but she just incidentally, she was talking about something else in her bin, going through it, and she goes, oh, there's an egg, or a cocoon, and so I looked at it and went, I think I've seen that. So I went out to my worm bin and started going through it again. It was time to feed it. And so I went through, and sure enough, I found 2 or 3 cocoons, and I was so excited. I went over to my parents' house holding this little tiny cocoon. It's about the same size as the monarch eggs. I think I've showed pictures of those. So just a little tiny pinhead. Like I said, these are a little bit on the oval side, grain of rice, but smaller. And so I was so excited. It just, yeah, it was exciting. So I have that. It actually kind of talked me into starting a second bin. I am not going to get very many more, but what I'm hoping is I am shredding all of the paper. In fact, this new bin, what I did is I had a bunch of, you know, Christmas presents generates so much trash. So I took everything that wasn't like waxy, metallic, all of that. So I took all of the like the more craft paper type wrapping and gift boxes that weren't able to be reused, the ones that are just like dress boxes or dress shirt boxes, you know, that are kind of just that heavy cardstock sort of thing that I could run through my shredder, and you know, the brown paper packing that comes in boxes, all of that kind of stuff, and ran it through my shredder. I had several bags of it. And we don't even do that many gifts. So, you know, it was kind of fun to be able to take something that would have gone in the trash pile and mix that up. I took some leaves from outside, and I probably goofed. And Tori from Anarchy Worm Bin, if you're watching, because she's a knitter too and likes worms, I probably goofed, and I probably used the wrong kind of coconut core, and I'm not entirely certain that that bin is gonna make it. So, lessons learned. I've got one really good one and one that I'm not sure about. So I will let you know, but hopefully, yeah, hopefully. Anyway, it was all stuff from Christmas Day, and I'm hoping that I will have enough of my worm castings and compost by the end of the winter, early spring, that I'll be able to use that for like my ginger for next year, and which is a small goal, you know, just a big pot, and so I should be able to have that much, and yeah, not have to buy at least that much potting soil for next year. So that's what I've been doing. We are up to, we got 7 eggs from our 12 hens. And one of those is probably, she's too old to really be laying much. So out of our new bunch of hens today, that's the highest we've gotten. We are past the shortest day now, and chickens tend to know that, and they pick up on that laying quickly. So we should be up to a full, I'm not ready for a dozen a day. And usually most of those, because we have dual purpose, a little bit heavier breeds chickens, they tend to have about a 36-hour-ish, 40 hours between eggs. So I don't get a dozen every day, which is okay. We don't need that many. But it's been really fun to every few days get a few, you know, one more. It's like, oh, one more is laying, one more is laying. So things are picking up in the hen house as well. Charles the rooster is definitely a rooster, and he's doing his job. So we will probably have a couple batches of chicks for this spring. That's our goal, our hope. Oh my goodness, this is long. I will definitely try to chop some of this apart and make it a little bit shorter. I know time is precious this time of year, so I just wanted to wish you all a very wonderful end to 2018, and I hope that you have a fair year ahead as well, and as 2019 gears up and we get into another year. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope your knitting goes well and your 2019 is fantastic. Have a great, safe New Year's, and I will see you back here in a couple weeks. Bye for now.